The first thing anyone noticed about the bike was the squeak. Not a normal squeak, the kind every kid ignores. This one sounded tired, like metal rubbing against metal after too many miles and not enough care, and the little girl riding it looked just as tired. She pedaled slowly along the cracked sidewalk of a quiet Chicago neighborhood, her small sneakers pushing hard against the pedals while the loose chain rattled with every turn. Her long brown ponytail bounced behind her helmet as she tried to keep the bike moving. But the bike had other plans. With a sharp clank, the chain slipped off completely. The girl gasped as the pedals spun uselessly beneath her feet. "Oh, come on," she whispered to herself, hopping off the bike. She looked around helplessly. The street was mostly empty, just old brick houses, a few parked cars, and the small auto repair shop sitting quietly at the corner. The sign above the shop read, "Reeves Auto and Repair." Inside the open garage stood Daniel Reeves. Daniel was a man most people overlooked. His clothes were worn. His hands were permanently stained with oil. His brown hair had more gray in it than he liked to admit. At 39, life had carved quiet lines into his face. But the moment he heard the metallic clatter outside the garage, he looked up and listened. Not just to the sound, to the problem. He wiped his hands on a rag and stepped outside. The girl stood beside the fallen bike, trying to push the chain back onto the gear with her tiny fingers. "Careful," Daniel said gently. "That thing bites." The girl looked up quickly. Her eyes were wide but calm, the kind of calm that comes from growing up around adults who expect you to handle things yourself. "Sorry," she said politely. "I didn't mean to stop in front of your shop." Daniel crouched beside the bike. "Stopping is the right thing when something breaks," he said. "Let's see what happened." He flipped the bike upside down, resting it on the handlebars and seat. The chain had slipped because the rear gear was bent. Daniel murmured. The girl shifted nervously. "Is it really bad?" Daniel studied the bike. It wasn't fancy, but it was well built and expensive. He could tell by the components. "Not really," he said. "Just needs a little patience." He grabbed a wrench from inside the shop and gently adjusted the gear back into place. The girl watched closely. "You fix cars?" she asked. "Mostly," Daniel replied. "But machines are machines." She nodded thoughtfully. "My mom says the same thing." Daniel slipped the chain back onto the gear and spun the wheel. Smooth. No squeak. He turned the bike upright and handed it back. "There you go." The girl climbed on and tested the pedals. The bike rolled perfectly. Her face lit up. "You fixed it!" Daniel smiled. "That's usually the goal." She reached into the small backpack hanging from the handlebars. "I have $5, she said. "You can take it." Daniel shook his head immediately. "Nope." "But you fixed it." "That's what neighbors do." The girl hesitated, clearly unsure. "Are you sure?" "Positive." She smiled, relief washing over her face. "Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I'm Lily." "Well, Lily," he said. "Try not to crash into any more repair shops today." She giggled and pedaled away down the street. Daniel watched her go, then returned to the garage. He thought that was the end of it. He was wrong. The next afternoon, the same bike rolled into the parking lot again. But this time, Lily wasn't alone. Behind her rode a woman on a sleek black bicycle. And the moment Daniel saw her, he realized something. This woman didn't belong to the quiet neighborhood the way the rest of them did. She wore simple athletic clothes, but they were clearly expensive. Her posture was confident. Her movements calm and precise. She stopped beside Lily and removed her helmet. Dark hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes immediately scanned the garage. Then they landed on Daniel. "You must be Daniel," she said, walking toward him. Her voice was warm but direct. Daniel wiped his hands again, suddenly aware of the grease on his shirt. "That's me." She extended her hand. "I'm Claire Bennett." Daniel shook it politely. "Nice to meet you." Lily rolled the bike beside her mother. "He fixed my bike yesterday," she said proudly. Claire smiled at Daniel. "Yes, I heard. And I wanted to thank you personally." "That wasn't necessary. It is when someone helps my daughter." Daniel shrugged. "Wasn't much." Claire looked at the bike carefully. "You fixed the rear derailleur." Daniel blinked. "Most people just say, the thing with the chain." Claire laughed softly. "I ride a lot." Daniel glanced at her bicycle. It was a high-end racing bike, easily worth more than every tool in his garage. "You ride really a lot," he said. Lily looked between them. "My mom rides everywhere," she said proudly. Claire smiled at her daughter. "It helps me think." Daniel leaned against the workbench. "So what brings you back? Bike still behaving?" "Perfectly," Claire said. She paused. "Actually, I was wondering if you might look at mine." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That thing costs more than my truck, which is why I'd rather someone careful handle it." Daniel examined the bike. The brakes were slightly misaligned. He adjusted them quickly. "There," he said after a moment. "Good as new." Claire tested the brake lever. "Perfect." "How much?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "You're Lily's mom. That doesn't mean your time is free." He shrugged again. "Consider it neighborly." Claire studied him carefully. There was something unusual about him. Not pride, not awkwardness, just quiet sincerity. "You know," she said slowly, "most people would have charged triple. Most people are smarter business owners." Claire laughed. And in that moment, something small but important shifted between them. Over the next few weeks, Lily's bike seemed to need fixing surprisingly often. Sometimes the brakes, sometimes the tires, sometimes nothing at all. Daniel never complained. Because each time Lily came by, Claire did too. Sometimes they talked about bikes, sometimes about Chicago, sometimes about nothing important at all. Daniel learned Claire worked in finance. A lot of finance. Eventually, he Googled her name out of curiosity. Claire Bennett, founder of a major investment firm. Net worth hundreds of millions. Daniel stared at the screen for a long time. Then he closed the laptop. The next time Claire came by, he treated her exactly the same. And somehow that mattered more to her than anything else. One evening, after Lily rode ahead toward the park, Claire stayed behind at the garage. "I never told you something," she said quietly. Daniel looked up from the engine he was repairing. "What's that?" "When Lily came home the first day, she talked about you for an hour." Daniel chuckled. "Kids do that." "No," Claire said softly. "Kids talk about people who are kind to them." Daniel didn't respond. Claire stepped closer. "Most people in my world don't notice children. Or mechanics." Daniel wiped his hands slowly. "Well, I notice broken things." Claire smiled gently. "That's exactly why I came back." Daniel looked at her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily's voice shouted from down the street. "Mom, race you!" Claire grabbed her helmet. "You'd better get going," Daniel said. She paused before leaving. "Dinner tomorrow?" she asked. Daniel blinked. "Dinner? With Lily," she clarified. He smiled. "Yeah, I think I can manage dinner." Claire mounted her bike. "Good," she said. Then she pedaled away toward her daughter. Daniel stood in the quiet garage, watching them disappear down the street. A poor mechanic fixing engines, a millionaire cycling through life. And somehow, a broken bike had quietly put them on the same road. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness don't just fix machines. Sometimes they change the direction of two lives forever.